Just east of the Golden Gate Bridge, in the center of San Francisco Bay, stands an escape-proof island, the toughest penitentiary in the United States, known as the Rock. A fishing boat hovered close by, a mile off the Rock, where 350 of the most desperate criminals in the nation were held under maximum security guard.
Help!
Okay, take it easy for a few minutes.
Gotta get my breath. I'll be okay. The thing is, I hurt my shoulder.
You got a bearing?
Yep.
Okay, Frank, shove off. We gotta find Mike Nelson.
I was testing new underwater signal flares for the manufacturer. They checked out fine. I was attaching them to self-inflating marker buoys and letting them rise to the surface. Suddenly, an anchor came crashing down from topside, missed me by inches. The man on the anchor line grinned at me playfully. It wasn't funny. Underwater is no place for practical jokes. If I could have talked, I'd have chewed him out right there.
You out of your mind? Dropping your anchor over a diver's flag and riding the anchor. Now that's real smart. Take it easy, man. Take it easy. Relax. We came a long way to see you.
Yeah, all the way from San Francisco.
Yeah? What for? To bury me at sea?
That's the last thing we want to do, Mike. We need your help.
Come on aboard. Let's talk it over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. I really am. I didn't mean to pull that schoolboy trick down below.
Just what is it that you fellas have in mind?
Well, it's like this, Mike. Oh, wait a minute. My name's Brand, Larry Brand. And these are my brothers, Johnny and Frank.
Hi. How are you?
We're abalone fishermen, Mike. Divers, just like you. Only we don't use one of those boilers on our back like you do. We have to drag an air hose wherever we go.
Makes it kind of rough, Mike. It was okay a few years ago, but competition's getting pretty rugged. We can't find the remote abalone beds with a hose. We've got to be able to swim in free. In other words, we've got to learn to use a lung or we're going to go out of business.
You know, it's against the law to dive commercially for abalone with a tank.
Oh, we know that, Mike. But we can search for the beds with a tank, can't we?
Well, what do you want from me?
We want you to teach us how to dive. With a tank, the right way. We asked around. You're the only man we want to teach us. We can only scrape up $300. That be enough?
There'd just be two of us, Mike. Me and Larry. Frank doesn't dive. He just handles the boat. Come on, what do you say?
Come on, say it's a deal, huh?
Come on, or our whole business goes bust.
What do you say, Mike?
All right, it's a deal.
Good.
Great.
On one condition.
What's that?
No more kid stuff like riding the anchor. And the first one that goofs off, well, school is over.
Whatever you say, Mike. You got that, Johnny?
Yeah, I got it. Whatever you say. What time school start?
Tomorrow morning, 8:30. Sharp.
We'll be right on time, teacher.
After briefing them thoroughly on the surface, I took 2 of the Brand brothers below. After the first dive, I could tell this was going to be a quick course. They were easy to teach. They were in good physical shape, strong swimmers, and experienced divers. All they needed were 2 things: the technical side of the unfamiliar scuba equipment and a rundown on basic safety rules. They were a pair of eager beavers, and I tried to impress upon them how one diver is responsible for the safety of his partner as well as himself. They learned fast, and they worked hard, almost too hard. And on every dive, I practically had to force them to surface after a long, rugged group of exercises. They were good, and they knew it.
Well, how we doing with this diving bit, Mike?
Another day like today, and I'm going to graduate you.
You mean we're all through for today?
Ah, you sure are. Yeah, you were down almost 5 hours. That's long enough for one day.
You know, we've been diving all our lives, Mike. You really think a couple more hours would hurt us?
Oh, it's not going to do you any good, that's for sure. You've been down below 60 feet. Already exceeded your maximum diving time. You know, this time is cumulative. If you go in again, you'd just be taking a chance. Why take it?
Okay, Mike. Okay, you're the boss. Now, another question.
Yeah?
How far can you swim underwater? I mean, without surfacing.
Well, it depends. Any more?
That's all.
This scuba equipment wasn't designed for distance swimming.
Yeah, but in an emergency, you might have to.
Well, emergency, you just come to the top and just swim.
But what if the water's choppy? Then you'd have to swim beneath the surface, right?
Yeah, that's right. Wait a minute, I got a book around here. Ah, here we are. Ah, that'll give you the word.
Thanks.
I'll get these tanks in the town, get them filled up with air, huh? I'll see you in a couple of hours. Now, remember, you fellas, don't get your feet wet.
Okay, Teach. We'll be good.
I returned a couple of hours later. As soon as I saw their empty boat and their air bubbles, I knew that Larry and Johnny had broken their promise. They were risking their lives. They had been diving too long for one day, and they didn't know how to calculate their air supply.
Oh, Mike, you're back early.
How long have they been down there?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it, though. They can take care of themselves.
Not after 5 hours, I can't.
Oh, wait a minute. They'll be up any minute.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't worry so much about it. They'll be all right.
Get out of my way. I said out of my way.
Now, look, Mike.
All right. Now tell me, exactly how long have they been down there?
30, maybe 45 minutes.
Means they haven't got much air left.
Their unauthorized dive was the second stupid trick that they'd pulled. But still, their lives were my responsibility as long as I was instructing them. The Brands were smart and quick, but completely without discipline. Someday, it'd get them into real trouble. I watched them doing a maneuver, one that I certainly had never taught them. Getting into a wetsuit underwater. But I couldn't wait around too long to find out what it was all about. I had to get them out of the water. Time was getting short for them. I didn't know where they were going, but they didn't seem to be surfacing. I overtook them and tried to make them understand that they had to surface, but right now. Johnny grappled with me and tore my mask off. I retrieved it, put it on, and cleared it of water. Then I realized that Larry was in trouble. He was tearing at his mask, gasping for air. I grabbed him and gave him my mouthpiece. The air from my tank was his last chance. And I brought Larry slowly but safely to the surface, exchanging the mouthpiece as we went.
Fellas deliberately disregarded everything that I told you. Well, I warned you. The school's over.
We were just working on a problem we read in your book.
Now, another 5 minutes down there and all your problems would have been over. What was the idea of changing your wetsuits down there? What was that all about?
Just practicing, that's all.
For what?
Oh, look, Mike, we're sorry, huh? And thanks for fishing me out of the drink, huh? We got what we came for. No hard feelings?
No hard feelings. Pay me to teach you, I taught you. Period. But I'll give you a little free advice. You keep playing games with the ocean, you're gonna lose.
The Brand brothers finally upped anchor and took off. Frankly, I was glad to get rid of them. People like that are not only dangerous to themselves, they're dangerous to others. Then I saw something on the deck of the pier, a wallet. It could only have belonged to Frank Brand. It must have fallen out of his pocket when I threw him. I looked at his identification card and his photograph. The name on it wasn't Brand. It was Bronson. They had lied to me about their name. I wondered what else they had lied about. After I discovered that the Bronson boys had given me a phony name, I went to Fisherman's Wharf to see what I could find out about them. That wetsuit change on the water had me puzzled, too. I learned enough to arouse a lot of curiosity. From one fisherman, I discovered that the Bronsons had not been abalone divers for years. Another lie. From another, I found out that they had a fourth brother, Mark, but no one knew much about him or where he was. I wasn't able to find their boat on the wharf, and I wasn't able to find out one good word about them either. Finally, I spotted the Bronson boat. It was laying to off a deserted pier just outside Oakland. There didn't seem to be anyone aboard. I decided to go out and get a closer look. I decided to board her and look around. Then I heard an outboard. It was the Bronsons, coming back to the boat. I got out of sight fast.
Let's get going. We don't have much time.
Right.
I grabbed a dangling bow line and held on. There was nothing I could do but wait to see what they were up to. The motor started. I decided to hitch a ride and stick with them. It was risky, but I knew they were up to no good. I felt responsible for them in a way. I had taught them to dive. It was hard to hold on. If I slipped, I'd be sucked into the propeller blades. But after the boat picked up speed, I had no choice. I had to stick with it. The pressure was tremendous. I was afraid that at any minute the forward speed would rip off my face mask. And then there were those blades back aft, snapping at my heels. Suddenly, the boat slowed down. Two men in diving gear, obviously Larry and Johnny, hit the water right in front of me. That was strange enough. But even stranger was the fact that they were carrying an extra diving outfit with them. I surfaced to see what it was all about. Now I knew what the Bronsons were up to. In teaching them to skin dive, I had prepared them for the most daring escape plot in the history of the Rock. Now it was up to me to stop it. At the moment, the odds weren't so good. 2 against 1. And I had a hunch that they were going to get worse. They stopped in the rocks and sent up a marker buoy. As soon as I saw the convict, I knew that he was the 4th Bronson brother, Mark. The rehearsal of the wetsuit change was now paying off. The Bronsons had planned the escape brilliantly. They knew that Mark couldn't last in the bitterly cold water of the bay unless he were protected by a wetsuit. I couldn't risk trying to take all 3 of them at once. I released a marker flare, hoping that it would attract the attention of the authorities on the island, and I took after them. All I could do for now was to keep right on their tails. They were swimming directly away from the island, obviously heading for a rendezvous with a boat far enough away so they wouldn't be detected. Their progress was slow, but so was mine. The tides of the bay are vicious and strong, so powerful that they prevented any escape from the island. But no one had ever tried it before underwater. Suddenly, they stopped. Larry whirled around and noticed me and waved to his brothers to go on. He had decided to fight a rear guard action by himself. He came at me with his knife. tough, clever, and slippery. Finally, I was able to spin behind him and cut his air hose. That sent him to the surface. I looked around for his brothers. They were by now too far away for me to catch up to them. The flare had done its job. The authorities had spotted it and sent a patrol boat out to investigate.
Run me line! All right, go ahead, haul him up.
I had one Bronson in the bag, but there were two more to go.
Little more to starboard! Little more! That's right. I'll keep on that heading. Have the Coast Guard pick up their boat.
Although I had reduced the odds, it was still 2-1 against me when I found Johnny and his convict brother. But I had something working for me. The cold water and the strong tides had sapped their strength. They'd been under for a long time. The flare had worked for me on the surface. I figured out a way for it to work for me underwater. Then while they were stunned, I pulled the mask off Mark, closed his air valve, and shoved him at his brother. Then I grabbed Johnny's knife hand and applied pressure till he dropped it. I got a stranglehold on him and brought him up.
Even though we didn't make it, it's a pretty good scheme. Don't you think so, Nelson?
No, not too good. Another 100 yards and that tide would have taken you clean through the Golden Gate. But you wouldn't have known a thing about it. That's fine, thanks.
We'll have the doctor take a look at this when we get back to the island.
If it's all the same with you, I'd feel a lot better if you dropped me off at Fisherman's Wharf. I've seen enough of Alcatraz.
Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.
The city was built around 12 lagoons and their connecting channels. Boats were used for transportation as much as cars, since the people had built their houses at the waterside. One of the lagoons penetrated the business district. On the morning of September the 12th, a fisherman had dropped his line over one of the embankments. A nervous fisherman. Nervous because at the end of his line there was no hook. There was a plumb bob. The two scuba divers measured precisely from the plumb bob. Carefully drew a circle around the measured point. A point directly outside the underground cash vault of the Coast Bank, where the receipts of the town's numerous resort hotels were guarded.
How'd you make out?
Give me the drawing, I'll show you. Okay, now that's the center of the tunnel. I marked it with a peg. There's where we'll go in.
Yeah? We can get Nelson to show you how to blast through to it.
He will. What are we old Navy frogmen buddies, huh? Ewo, Saipan, Tarawa.
If it's not airtight, I want out.
It is airtight, and you're in. I waited a long time for a crack at this job. All I needed was someone to show me how to get through that embankment.
And Nelson will show you.
Even when he doesn't know he's showing me. Come on, let's get this tub moving.
$1.5 million in cash, 7 feet behind that embankment.
And if anyone can show us how to get into that bank vault, Nelson's the man.
The middle of the next morning, I'd just come up for a rest period after an hour's dive. I was laying out a cable route for a local phone company.
Hey, Mike! Mike Nelson!
Ben Murdoch.
Right.
Well, what do you know?
How are you, Mike? How's the old fight going, huh?
Oh, it's not bad. What about you? What are you doing in the Navy?
Well, I'm looking for you.
Looking for me?
Yeah. I read in the paper you're in town, working for the phone company. Well, Mike, I kind of got myself in a little bind, and actually that's what I came to talk to you about. Thought you might be able to help me out.
Oh, what's your problem?
Well, ever since I've been out of the Navy, I've been in the same business as you. And I got myself in a little bind here. I took a contract to punch through a seawall 10 feet under the surface and down Costa Rica off San Jose.
Oh, it just looks routine. Drill and a little gelatin.
Oh, well, maybe routine for you, Mike. Remember, hydraulic pressure and shaped charges weren't my strong point.
All right, you want to come with me? Take off my tanks, we'll talk about it.
Oh, it's great, Mike. That's my old buddy. Hey, wait a minute. Let me give you a hand.
Oh, I'll be glad to lay out the procedure for you. You want to get together tomorrow morning, Super?
Well, Mike, I think I got a better idea. Now, you got a work permit, and I haven't. Why don't you get us 10 pounds of dynamite, and you can demonstrate the procedure?
Oh, your seawall is down in Costa Rica.
Oh, I'm ahead of you on that. I already found an old seawall north of town. Built very much like this one. Maybe you could show me on it, huh?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, I took the liberty of making out a permit for 10 pounds of dynamite. That ought to be enough, huh?
Yeah, sure, 10 pounds. That's plenty for a demonstration.
Yeah.
You never know it's a 10. That'll get you 70 pounds without any questions.
Great. We'll store 60 pounds aboard, and I'll give Nelson the other 10. And I'll take him over to the old seawall in the morning.
The next morning, Murdoch and I were at an old seawall north of town. The air compressor was needed to power an underwater jackhammer. The first phase of the operation was to breach the face of the concrete wall. At spaced intervals, I marked the places to drill holes about an inch in diameter. With the help of the jackhammer, making the hole should be quick work. I showed Murdoch how it had to be done. After drilling a few sample holes, I turned the jackhammer over to Murdoch to see whether he could handle it. He'd been paying very close attention. He had the idea. Next, the dynamite. The short sticks were already wired and capped. I placed the first stick in one of the holes so that the detonating wire protruded. Each stick had to be sealed in and tamped over with clay. Again, I indicated to Murdoch to duplicate the operation. He was a very willing pupil. Now all that remained was to splice the wires into one cable and lead them up into the embankment where we had a battery detonator.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it worked all right. I gotta get back to my job. Suppose we get together day after tomorrow about this same time, huh? And we'll go through the next phase.
Yeah, well, what's that?
Pulling through that loose dirt on this side of the wall and shoring up.
Okay, Mike, anything you say.
See you then.
Murdoch lost no time in getting back to the seawall at the coast bank. In 2 hours of work the next day, he completed preparations to breach the face of the wall. The dynamite charges were wired and ready to explode.
Let's go see what happened.
Murdoch had been a star student. The concrete wall was perfectly blasted, exposing the soft earth of the embankment itself. Two days later, I was back at the old seawall with Murdoch. Using a short length of shoring pipe, I showed him how he'd have to excavate the hole by degrees. The shoring pipe would be shoved in as the earth was brought out. Murdoch understood and was grateful for my help. I did everything but give him a diploma.
The only difference in your job will be that you'll have to tunnel further and use a longer drill.
I can't think enough, Mike. When I get paid, there'll be a little bonus.
Ah, forget that. Just see that you do a good job in Costa Rica.
On the following Friday, I'd half completed my work for the phone company. That was the day my old buddy feeling for Murdoch went sour.
Nelson?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm Wade, State Inspector Explosives.
Oh, well, nice to know you. What can I do for you?
Well, not much, to tell the truth. I was in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd drop by. See how you were doing with all that gelatin you bought the other day.
Wait a minute, all that 10 pounds?
10? I thought it was 70.
Ah, just 10.
Says 70 here.
Well, I just signed for 10. I'm very careful about these things.
Well, you bought the gelatin, and you know the difference between 10 pounds and 70.
No, I just signed for it. A friend of mine picked it up. Give him a call at his hotel. Okay, thanks. Hotel says Murdoch isn't registered there. Says there hasn't been anyone there by that name any day this week, or this month.
You sure you got the right hotel?
I got the right hotel. I think I got the wrong man.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to check into this.
Now, wait a minute. I think I know how I can get a lead on him. He said he had no compressor. Well, there's only one place in town that handles compressed air.
Yep, I remember him. No, I ain't. No. Yeah, I'll be glad to keep an eye out for him. Yeah. The cops? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson. I'll call the cops just as soon as I see him.
Murdoch needed no more help from me. He was towing a length of shoring pipe toward the seawall alongside the coast bank. It would reach from open water through the embankment to the wall of the bank vault itself. Concealed by a 15-foot blanket of water, Murdoch entered on the final phase of his operation. same day, when I surfaced for a breather from my own work, I found a police officer waiting for me.
I got a make on your friend Murdoch. He served time. The Costa Rican government's never heard of him.
My friend, huh?
Yeah, fine friend. He got 60 pounds of dynamite out of him.
How about that?
Headquarters to 356.
356, bye.
On missing dynamite, John Harkins, 148th Street on South Lagoon, has information for you.
Proceeding to Harkins Dock, 10-4. 10-4.
At the other end of the shoring pipe, Murdoch had set his final dynamite charges. This time to blast through the wall of the bank vault. The traffic on the lagoon was light. It was the start of a quiet weekend for all except the Coast Bank.
Saw him, Sergeant. I saw him, I did. Expected him in a car, but they come up in a boat.
Murdoch?
Who?
Are you sure it was Murdoch?
Murdoch? No, the tall, skinny fellow with a tattoo on his arm. They recharged 4 tanks, they did.
Can you describe the boat?
Well, I sure can. It was a 36-footer sports fisherman, and it had an open cockpit, and it was painted white.
Thanks a lot, mister.
Now we knew that Murdoch was somewhere in the area. The police officer radioed a description of the wanted boat to headquarters. A general alarm to search the lagoons of the city was sent out.
It's nice of the bank people to give their help Saturday off.
You sure there's not going to be any noise?
Oh, it wasn't last time you were here. Anyhow, if there should be a hell of a row, all we have to do is drop this stuff over the side and let it float away. Hey, shall we play bank night?
Murdoch chose a moment when no other boats were near.
Well, I guess it's time to go for a little swim. That cutting torch ready?
Sure is.
Want me to go with you?
No, there isn't room for 2 of us in that pipe. I'll let you know if I need you. Give me a hand with it.
Jefferson Lake searched, and now heading out of North Channel into Bonneview Lagoon, over.
Murdoch had one more obstacle to overcome, but he was prepared to deal with it with a cutting torch. Although the dynamite blast had knocked a hole through the wall of the vault, the steel reinforcing bars still had to be cut. The torch took care of them very easily. The vault was flooded, but otherwise undamaged.
Take a look at that one.
Could be. Let's have a look.
Look what's coming. Get rid of the battery.
Who else you got on board?
Well, just the 2 of us, Sergeant.
This your boat?
Nobody else's.
I'm coming about. Follow me into shore.
My pleasure, Sergeant. What's it all about?
Just follow me.
Hold it.
What's the matter?
You see that embankment?
What about it?
I got an idea.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mike. Hey, they're getting out of here. I'm going.
So am I. Came at me with a searing white-hot flame. I disarmed the torch by pinching off the gas mixture that fed the flame. The torch went out. Then it was knives. Finally, I got a stranglehold on Murdoch. With his hair cut off, he gave up.
Okay, down below. Let's go. I'm going to take in the boat as well as these suspects.
Drop me off in the bank on your way.
What for?
There's a hole in the wall that needs fixing.
Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is fun and adventure for young and old, but it can be dangerous. So know the sport well and don't take any chances. Be with you next week for another exciting sea hunt.
was a short distance offshore from one of America's most vital defense installations. A plant making highly explosive rocket fuel. I had to move with great caution. A patrol boat was in the vicinity. On it were factory guards, members of the plant's security staff. They had the legal right to shoot to kill. I knew they would. I didn't intend to give them the chance. My mission was sabotage. The circumstances that had made me a saboteur still seemed weird and strange to me. Yet here I was. Sabotage was my job, and I intended to do my job. With a periscope, I could safely check the movements of the patrol boat, too, and give it plenty of room. The way I was working seemed safe enough to me. My underwater camera combined a telephoto lens with the periscope attachment. I started by getting some very good offshore views of the most secret building in the entire plant. I made many other revealing photos of the plant and its working activities. Unfortunately, I became too interested in my work. I was neglecting the patrol boat. I was in trouble. I had to drop the camera and swim for my life. The first shots would be warning shots to make me come to the surface. I might still be able to escape. The area where they had trapped me was fairly shallow, too shallow, and the water was uncomfortably clear. The water was slowing the bullets down, but they were much too close. These were no longer warning shots. These bullets meant business. So up I went, hands first.
Come aboard! Over there.
Okay, mister, what were you doing down there?
Scuba diving? No law against that. There is against shooting at someone, though.
How long you been down there?
Oh, about half an hour.
Where'd you come from?
Just offshore.
You know what that is over there?
No, but I couldn't care less. Mind if I go?
That island is out of bounds, off limits to anybody.
Well, I didn't see any signs down there where I was.
That's very funny. So you're a skin diver, huh? That just happened to wander into this area.
That's right.
What's your name?
Perdway. Jim Perdway.
Mr. Perdway, what was that little device that you were using?
Device? What device?
Never mind. Packy, take us back to where we first saw him. Now, Mr. Perdway, let's get out of that gear.
Pretty clever device you've got here, Mr. What'd you say your name was?
Perdway.
Perdway. Where'd you get this?
Had it made.
Pretty useful, too.
I don't know how useful it is. I have fun with it. But I got news for you. This isn't any fun. And when I get hold of my lawyer, you and your boys in this company are going to be in for a king-size lawsuit.
Now, don't get yourself worked up, Mr. Padway.
Perdway. And I am worked up. Plenty. I've been shot at, handcuffed, illegally detained, and third degreed. When all I was doing was diving in waters that I had no way of knowing was a restricted area.
And also because you took some pictures in that restricted area.
I didn't know it was restricted.
But we'll find that out when we get your film back from the darkroom. All right, fellas, you better get back to the patrol boat.
Sure you don't need us here?
No, I can handle it. Thank you. You did a fine job, both.
Thanks.
You put on a good act, Mike.
I even surprised myself. Your boys weren't acting, though. They were playing for real. They're sure on their toes.
Well, good. That's what I'm paying you to find out. Sorry you have to work so hard for your money.
Yeah, so am I. Hey, maybe we better let him in on it, huh?
No, keeping everyone out but you and me is the only way to get a legitimate check on our security on the seaward side of this plant. Now, what else did you see besides the patrol boat?
Plenty. I took some pictures that'll make your hair stand on end. And if I can do it, somebody else can. I don't mean that the fellas aren't doing a good job of patrolling, but I think maybe you might need another patrol boat.
No, we'll put one on. You work close to shore all the way?
Yeah, right in through here.
What about the intake pipe? This worries me a little.
No, I didn't get that far. Pretty rough through there, you know. And it's a long way out. Rough water.
Let's hope that guarantees its safety.
Well, let's find out for sure, though, huh?
The intake pipe was the plant's most sensitive underwater point. The mouth of the pipe lay a long way offshore and very deep. A dozen men had lost their lives forcing that water tunnel through the ocean bottom. The whole area was very dangerous and seemed almost impossible to reach without a boat. It was the last place that anybody would expect a saboteur. I paused to take a bearing. The farther I went, the more I realized that the intake pipe was much too far and too deep to be within anybody's reach. But I was determined to get there if I could. The visibility was getting poorer. I was just about to turn back, and then I spotted something that could be my answer. The hulk of a sunken freighter. The idea occurred to me that it would be an ideal halfway point. I could store some spare air tanks in it and use it like a way station. From here, the mouth of the intake pipe would be within easy reach. But there were air tanks already there, and they weren't mine. Someone else was there ahead of me with the same idea. I heard someone land on the deck above me. I got out of sight, and none too soon. I waited while he changed his tanks. I wanted to know what his next move would be. get well ahead so that I could follow him without being noticed. There was no mistaking the direction. Whoever he was heading for that intake pipe. I got there a few minutes behind him. 2 men were in front of that pipe, cutting a hole in the screen. My first thought was that they were going to enter the pipe. This would give me an opportunity to trap them both. Then suddenly I recognized what one of them was holding. It was a miniature torpedo. I started toward them, but it was too late to stop them. The torpedo was in the pipe, racing on its way into the rocket fuel plant where just one explosion would turn everything for miles around it into a blazing inferno. It had been my job to stop them, and I had failed. But if there was to be any chance left, I had to bring those 2 men to the surface, alive. I used a trick that I had learned as a Navy frogman. I choked him with a rubber sling and my spear gun. It cut his air down to a minimum, leaving him helpless until I could return to deal with him. The second man was tougher. But finally, I turned off his air valve. He had only one way to go, up. Within 5 minutes, they were both on the deck of the patrol boat, in custody. And I was in custody, too, until Madden identified me.
Yes, Mr. Madden, I understand. Yes, sir, he can help with the interrogation. Yes, sir, I'll tell him that. Over. They're evacuating the plant at once.
Good. What do you say about reversing the flow in the intake pipe?
Well, it can be done, but it'll take time because the engineers have to disconnect and reconnect the pumps. Now, come on, you two, talk.
How much time before that torpedo goes off?
Come on, talk! Don't you realize that that plant goes up, half the island goes with it? You want to wind up in the gas chamber?
Gas chamber? Well, wait a minute. I was just a helper.
That torpedo had a delayed fuse. You had to allow yourselves time to get clear. Now, how much time?
Come on, talk!
All right. We said it. Get out of there. Let him go. Come on. Come on, get out of there.
Now you talk.
Okay, we said it. We left ourselves an hour.
It gives me about 45 minutes.
Where are you going?
Into that tunnel.
Are you kidding?
No, there's still a chance. I've got to take it. I'll need a spare tank. I'm going to use yours.
How far in are you going?
As far as I can get.
I placed the spare air tanks in front of the tube, in case that I was down to my last gasps of air by the time I got back. If I got back. Being alone in that dark, weird pipe gave me a strange feeling. I felt an almost irresistible urge to turn and go back, where it was safe. I knew that I couldn't. I pushed along, hoping that the torpedo had stopped short or had been fouled within the tube in some way. I knew that far over my head, the plant was being evacuated, and a large area around it. Thousands of people at that moment were fleeing in terror of the worst possible explosion in their memory. I had to find that torpedo. I was deep into the pipe. In front of me was a ring of measuring gauges. The torpedo had dented one of the gauges and continued on, but it could have been damaged or deflected. I started through too quickly. Suddenly, I couldn't move. My air hose had caught on one of the measuring devices. I couldn't twist too far to reach it without ripping it. I was trapped. I tried not to panic. If I could slip the tanks off, I might free the air hose. But I had to move with infinite care. A torn air hose here could only mean certain death. And not only for me. It slipped free, with the air hose still intact. But my air supply was greatly reduced. My valve was damaged. My life depended on whether I could repair it. I'd lost precious time and air. Everything seemed to be working against me. My body ached. My lungs ached. I wondered whether this was really pipe or an endless coffin. I knew that I was feeling the effects of the pressure. My thoughts didn't seem to coordinate. The turn in the tube indicated that I was now under the plant itself. It should have alerted me to something else, but I was too groggy to notice. It was my air tank that hit the little propeller. It didn't register at first, but the metallic sound woke me out of my numbness. I reached up. I had been told how to disarm it. I knew that even disarmed, it could still be dangerously sensitive and tricky. Determined not to drop it or bump it. But there was something else that worried me even more, that I didn't have the strength left to make the long trip back or the air to sustain me. trying to use only the very minimum of air. I was dazed and bone weary. My muscles were still moving me forward, but I hardly knew how. The torpedo was getting heavier and heavier. My arm ached from gripping it, and almost slipped. Somehow it didn't seem to matter. The pipe seemed to be closing in on me. I felt as though I was held in a water-filled straitjacket. After a while, the last strength seemed to have gone out of my legs. I realized dimly that I had practically stopped moving. I thought, what a strange place to die. I thought I was done for. But I made one last effort to shake out of it. It was instinct for survival, nothing else. Then I saw light ahead. I raced forward to get my tank of air. I released the torpedo. It didn't explode. No breath ever felt better. I looked up. The patrol boat was still circling and waiting. When it was firing bullets at me, I never thought that a day would come when that boat would be such a welcome sight. But this was the day. This was the day. I'll be back next week at this same time with another sea hunt story. Plan to be with us again, huh?